This Portsmouth Daily Times morning update is brought to you by Advance 360 Progressive Rehabilitation Center, located at 2125 Royce Street in Portsmouth. Call 354-6635 or visit advance-360.com. Heal faster, home sooner.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Portsmouth Daily Times football preview. Last week was pretty exciting, a lot of really good games, but the one that really stands out to everybody is the heartbreaking loss that Portsmouth suffered to Wilmington.
You're right, Bob. It was tough in a way that they had the lead against Wilmington, 24-3, turnovers, miscues. It was just something that also you had two blocked PATs. Two PAT conversions for 2 points, both failed, and then you had a field goal attempt in overtime that was blocked as well. That's got to be something that was really tough for Coach Clifford this week. What kind of things did he talk about with that?
When I spoke to him on the phone, he said that it was a very tough loss for him, particularly because of the emphasis they put on ball security, and there were 4 fumbles in that game and an interception. And in one game in the 2011 season, Portsmouth has matched the amount of fumbles that they've had the past 4 years, and that's 1,300 carries. So he was very disappointed, and he cited all the different drills that the players go through to emphasize ball security, and they re-upped those drills this week, and I don't think it'll be a problem against Portsmouth West.
And there were a couple of games that we also want to look at from last week was Wheelersburg at Ironton and then Fayetteville Perry over at Notre Dame. First of all, let's talk about you were over at Notre Dame over at Trojans or at Spartan Stadium for that game. What kind of things did you see out of Notre Dame in week 1?
I saw very good quarterback play, but the thing that really stood out to just about anybody in attendance was the performance of wide receiver and defensive back Kevin Lewis. He had over 150 yards receiving and was very impressive in each of his catches, tiptoeing the sideline and making people miss. There were a couple occasions on defense on 4th and long where they were throwing up a ball and he was draped all over the offensive player and had 2 very good pass deflections to break it up. It's hard to take much from a game as lopsided as that one was, but I think big things are coming for Kevin Lewis, and Notre Dame's going to be an interesting team to watch. Mm-hmm. Now, you were at Ironton and Wheelersburg, and that was a lopsided game as well. What did you take from that?
Well, obviously, Wheelersburg is going to be a little bit down this year. They return one person, basically. That's it from their starting offense and defense from last year. That's Alex Shears. You can't really go in and fault Wheelersburg for what they did. I mean, they played a really hard game. First defensive series of the season for the Berg. They go in, they're up against it in a goal line situation. They hold Ironton scoreless. That's something that's really promising for Coach Woodward's troops. Hopefully they're going to use that as a springboard this week. But again, Ironton was typical Ironton, running the ball ad nauseum. 6 passes, actually, which really surprised me. I talked to Coach Bob Lutz about that afterwards, and because I was kind of shocked about it. And he said, well, when you go in and you stack everybody up in the box, you have to go pass. Mm-hmm. So that's what they did, and, hey, they were pretty successful in it.
Well, speaking of Wheelersburg, they're going to take on Oak Hill. That's going to be an interesting game because it's 2 teams that are kind of rebuilding. They've got some youth on either side, and like you said, Alex Shears is the guy for Wheelersburg, and I think that's probably something that Oak Hill's going to have to deal with.
And that's the thing with both of these teams. Ironically, last year they were the SOC 1 and SOC 2 champions. Again, they've lost a lot. Oak Hill coming with a new program, basically with Randy Homa and his coaching philosophies and everything like that. One of the things that you got to look out for is how are both teams going to respond and rebound from such lopsided losses. And with Wheelersburg, they're back at home. They should be feeling a little bit more comfortable about how they were able to perform, and maybe they'll pick up the win. Maybe Oak Hill will come in and realize, hey, we got a big road test here. We need to go in and step it up, and maybe they'll pick up the win. So it's going to be a fun matchup in that aspect over in Wheelersburg.
And speaking of home games, with Wheelersburg being at home and Oak Hill traveling, West travels to Portsmouth, And that's going to be an interesting rivalry game between two coaches that go back a very long way. I spoke with both coaches, Kurt Clifford and Bob Schaefer at West. They've been buddies since they first were working together on the Portsmouth staff 37 years ago. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamic of these two facing off with each other, with Schaefer now going into his second game as the head man at West. And talking to Kurt Clifford, he said that his main concern is going to be that quarterback for West, Levi Ratliff, who's he's cited as one person who's come along amazingly since his career started as a sophomore. He's just progressed and turned into a really good player. And then, of course, for Portsmouth, they have Mason Jordan at quarterback.
And with Mason, he stepped in pretty well last year in place of Josh Myers. Last week, he goes in, has a couple of cramps here and there. Cody Stapleton comes in and plays very good in mop-up duty, or not mop-up duty, but in a substitution duty. When I was sitting and listening to the game, he sounded like he was poised, he was confident and everything like that. So both having the chance to go in and get two quarterbacks worked in early in the season should be a benefit for Portsmouth.
And then the last game that we're going to talk about here is the one that you'll be traveling to cover when Northwest, surprising Northwest after week one, will be taking on East at home.
Yeah, and you talk about surprising. Everybody in Scioto County should know this is a big surprise. If Northwest does win, this will be the first time since around 2000 when it'll be the first time since 2000 that they enter week 3 at 2-0. They have one of the top running backs in the area in Luke Brown. He had a big monster game against Chillicothe Southeastern last week. On the opposite end of the field, you have Cody Belleville, the tailback for East. He's pretty good as well. I mean, being in the state in track and field. But so running the ball is going to be a big key to this game. One of the things that Coach Todd Gilliland over at East is not going to have for his services is Tyler Bradford. He's out with a mild concussion. So even with East, a small Division VI school, they're going to be even smaller as far as numbers come Friday night.
So it's going to be a battle of two running backs and two run defenses, basically, between Northwest and East. Visit Portsmouth Daily Times online to see all the updated scores on Friday evening. We'll try to put those up as soon as they come in, and be sure to pick up Saturday's edition of the paper. That'll have every detail from every game. In the Portsmouth Daily Times newsroom, I'm Bob Strickley.
I'm Cody Leist. Thanks for watching.
This Portsmouth Daily Times morning update is brought to you by Advance 360 Progressive Rehabilitation Center, located at 2125 Royce Street in Portsmouth. Call 354-6635 or visit advance-360.com. Heal faster, home sooner.